Hey everyone, and welcome to our training on the guest registration and check-in process. You know, when a guest walks up to the front desk, that interaction might seem pretty straightforward. But behind that warm welcome, there's a really important, carefully designed procedure. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at exactly how it works. We'll get into why that first impression is so incredibly important, not just for a great stay, but for legal and operational reasons you might not even think about.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the goal of that first impression. Then, we're going to walk step by step through the entire check-in process. After that, we'll really dig into why every single one of those little details matters so much. And to finish up, we'll do a quick knowledge check to make sure it all sticks.
All right, let's kick things off with the why. Why is this process about so much more than just handing over a room key?
I love this way of thinking about it. Every check-in is basically the opening chapter of the guest's story with our hotel. And our job at the front desk, it's to make that first chapter feel welcoming, smooth, and just completely reassuring. It's really our very first chance to show a guest that they absolutely made the right choice by staying with us.
What's so interesting here are the two sides of the coin. On one hand, you've got all the operational stuff, right? Confirming who the guest is, getting their info for legal reasons, making sure everything is accurate. But on the other hand, and this is just as important, you have the hospitality piece, creating that warm, professional, welcoming vibe. A perfect check-in has to nail both of these every single time.
So, now that we know the why, let's get practical. Let's see how all of this translates into the actual step-by-step process you'll follow when a guest walks up to the desk.
It all kicks off with these first three simple actions. A genuine, warm greeting immediately sets the right tone. Then, you just ask for the guest's name to find the reservation. Once you have it, you print the registration card. From the guest's perspective, this should all feel completely seamless and easy. Now, this next step is absolutely crucial. When you hand over that registration card, you need to ask the guest to double-check these specific details, confirming their name, their stay dates, the room rate, and how they're planning to pay. Getting this right at the very beginning is a huge deal. It helps prevent any kind of confusion or billing problem down the line.
Okay, next up is the documentation part. You politely ask for ID, that's a local ID for residents, or, of course, a passport and visa for our international guests. While they're getting that out, you can fill in any other needed details on the card before you start recording that essential passport and visa info.
And this is a big one. This isn't just our hotel's policy. In most cases, we're required by law to collect this specific information from foreign guests. That's why we have to get the passport number, nationality, all those issue and expiry dates, plus the visa details. It is an absolutely mandatory part of the check-in.
We are on the home stretch now. Before you ask for a signature, it's always a good idea to quickly explain the late checkout policy. It just helps manage expectations. Then, you ask the guest to sign the card, which confirms everything is correct. And finally, you scan or photocopy their ID and visa to attach to the registration form.
And the last three steps all happen on our side of the desk. First, you, the front office assistant, will cross-sign the card, which shows you also verified its accuracy. Then, and this is super important for future visits, you update the guest's profile in our system with all this new info. And lastly, you file that completed card away, nice and secure. So, we've just walked through the how in 12 clear steps. But why? Why is getting every single one of those little details right so critical? Well, the stakes are actually higher than you might think.
And wow, this slide really puts it in black and white, doesn't it? When we do it right, we're legally compliant, billing is perfect, our guests are happy, and we look totally professional. But when things go wrong, we're looking at regulatory risks, billing arguments, frustrated guests, and a really poor hotel image. The difference is just night and day.
When you boil it all down, the entire process really comes back to this one simple, powerful mission: to make every single check-in smooth, accurate, and memorable for our guests. If we can just keep this goal in mind, we're going to consistently deliver that amazing experience they expect and deserve.
All right, team, we have covered a lot of ground. To make sure it all really sinks in, let's wrap this up with a few key questions about the process.
First up, let's think about this. Why is it an absolute must that we complete this entire registration process right when a guest checks in?
Second question, what are those key pieces of information on the registration card that we need the guest to personally verify to make sure everything's accurate?
Okay, next one. When we have international guests,
What are those specific passport and visa details that are absolutely mandatory for us to record?
Here's a simple but important one. Does the front office assistant need to sign that registration card too? And if so, why?
And finally, let's think long-term. What's that crucial final step that makes sure all the information we've collected today helps create an even better, more personalized stay for that guest in the future?